Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adoption in Focus from Adoption Focus. My name is Lisa, and although this is my first appearance on Adoption in Focus, you may recognise me from our sister podcast, Education in Focus. I have with me here today one of our adopters, Nathan Jarvis, who adopted his children 10 years ago. We're going to take some time to reflect on his journey and find out what he has learned 10 years on. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. I'm really looking forward to today. Obviously, we don't want to share too much, but it might be nice for the listeners to know a little bit about your family. I believe that you have two boys. How old were they when they first came home?
They were 4 and 5, so yeah, quite young, really.
I bet that was a massive change, virtually overnight, from none to two, aged 4 and 5.
Yeah, it was huge. It was it was quite a shock. I mean, whatever all the preparation you do, nothing really prepares you for it. But we were really lucky to have a fantastic social worker from yourselves who spent loads of time with us, but also prepared our sort of friends and our neighbours. What I
Yeah.
do for a job. So I was then a vicar in Oxford. So there were lots of people in the church community that needed to get ready as well. And the
Yeah.
preparation process was really good. But yeah, nothing prepares you.
That leads me in really nicely to my first question, which is how was the reality of being an adoptive parent matched up to what you first thought or first expected when you started the process?
I think I was quite open minded. I didn't really know what to expect. So you have this sort of idea, don't you, of what a family looks like or feels like. And maybe it's a bit more like that if you're adopting babies or whatever, but they were quite developed, individuals who we didn't know until they arrived. So you just kind of have to go with the flow. Um, so yeah, I mean, the reality was amazing. It was full of lots of ups and downs, lots of ups because you're kind of getting to know their funny quirks and what their characters are. And it was lovely. It was absolutely exhausting. So I had 10 months adoption leave, and at first I was like, "Oh, 10 months, it's ages. I don't really need 10 months."
So yeah,
I could
how will I fill the time?
have done with a couple of years, really.
Yeah.
And lots of those 10 months I don't remember because I was so exhausted. And the sort of highlight was when I fell asleep on a swing while the kids were pushing, and I fell off because I was asleep. So that's how tired I was.
That's wonderful. The one thing you do remember from the first 10 months is falling off a swing because you're sleeping. I think many parents out there will be nodding, going, I remember the exhaustion well.
Yeah, yeah. It's like your sort of train had hit you, really.
Yeah. And the point you made there about, they're fully formed human beings, aren't they? So, they come into your lives and you have to learn about them.
Yeah.
You're not starting from scratch.
Mm,
It's a massive adjustment to get to know these fully formed human beings and realizing very quickly you can't make them do anything. You cannot make them,
no.
these plans and way that we envisaged it, actually, we've just got to see what they're like.
Yeah. Well, ours had been through quite a lot as well. They'd had
Mm.
quite a traumatic time, so it was kind of yeah. There was just so much learning to do, and knowing what they could cope with. So, for example, a day out was like you almost had to do a psychological assessment before you went out because one of them would have a massive tantrum, and it might be something it might be because we made him wear a sort of waterproof coat, and he had a bad experience with somebody trying to make him put on a waterproof coat, as it turns out, down to much more serious things which we found out about along the line. So yeah, it was trial and error, I would say.
And I think obviously, because like we're now thinking about 10 years on,
Mm.
like when you were going through the process, I wondered, did you think what it would be like being an adoptive parent? I don't know, 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Did you give any thought to that? Or was
Uh,
it really about those earliest days?
Yeah, I think it was mainly about what was about to happen. You don't you somehow I mean if you think about your own life, well, I don't know, you might be really good at planning and have your career and your personal life all set and bumble
Never.
along. It's like, well, something will happen and it'll be fine, and it has been. but no, I hadn't really thought what it would be like, and it's very different to anything I could imagine because, of course, they're both now, they're 14 and 15. One's doing his mocks for his GCSEs, and it's a whole different world again. So it kind of changes, to my mind, every 2 or 3 years. You kind of get new children because they really change and develop. Not just what they're interested in, but just their characters and how they look. So
Yeah.
recently, over the last year, they've both just transformed. They're both enormous. They've got size 10.5 feet. They look like flippers because they've not quite yet. All that kind of stuff. It's just a constantly evolving process,
Yeah.
getting to know these people who are, turning into really lovely young adults. Really.
I find that amazing because I certainly notice with my daughter, she's much younger, but I can recognise there are stages. Um, and that's
Uh,
it's a lovely thought watching them grow and develop, but it's also perhaps a little bit daunting because you just about get the hang of one stage and then you're into another one and it's all change again.
yeah, I think the teenage stage has been the hardest for me because I mean, they're lovely. They're tactile, cuddly, um, very sort of open, chatty children. They always have been, despite everything.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they become teenagers, and it's like that sketch, with Harry Enfield.
Yeah.
They go to bed, on their 12th birthday or whatever, and wake up 13, and they can't speak or move their legs or help. And it was exactly like that. But then with our eldest, he's almost, I mean, he's only, he's 15, but he's almost coming out of it, sort of thing. Or
Yeah.
and his empathy is coming back, and he wants to talk. And yeah, it's lovely to see, really.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some of the achievements that you've had as a family?
uh
It's a big question.
an achievement would be that we're all still here, fed and watered and clothed, and
Yeah.
live in a house, really, and we've got jobs, and I don't know. um I mean, lots of things that might look really little, but for example, last week we went to the pantomime
Yeah.
because one of my boys has, he's not diagnosed with ADHD or autism, but he finds being in big open public spaces really difficult. You have to plan and tell him everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And the last time we went, which is when they were really little, the eldest just spent his whole time looking at the lighting rig, like up on the ceiling. And it's part
Yeah.
interested in stuff like that, but also because he couldn't engage with what was going around him because it was loud, and actually it was
Yeah.
fun, and he had to allow himself to relax and to have fun. So this time, it was brilliant. So it was Cinderella, and the Ugly Sisters were outrageous. They were really, and he got it, and I just glanced across and looked at his face, and could have almost cried because he was just
Yeah.
pure kind of joy in the moment, because it's a load of nonsense, isn't it?
Always.
But it was just so lovely. He wasn't analysing things or really holding himself back or having to control his emotions. He was just being in the moment. That is a big. It doesn't sound much, but that's a really big achievement.
It does, it seems absolutely massive, and for you to be able to
Yeah,
recognise that change in him, A, you've got him absolutely having a blast and experiencing that sheer joy, but also that
yeah,
recognition of it hasn't always been like that, and
uh,
this is progress, this is brilliant,
yeah.
yeah.
No, it's great. And one other thing, which is a more sort of straightforward thing, because we moved to Wales, so where we live, it's Welsh speaking,
Yeah.
and they're both fluent in Welsh, which is
Wow.
and the youngest, takes particular pride in being able to go into a shop and ask for food or speak to somebody in Welsh, and I'm just in awe
Yeah.
because I'm a learner. I'm not very good. I'm not good at languages anyway. But he's just amazing, and he's done that from for quite a few years now.
How phenomenal.
He's
Yeah.
picked it up really quickly. That's a real achievement for him, I think.
Oh, that's lovely. Um, how have you managed with life story work over the years?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, at first it was quite difficult because um, the birth parents didn't engage. Well, they haven't engaged at all throughout the whole process until very recently, and it's been difficult because we stopped writing the letters because nothing was coming back, and it's like this is the deal. We've both signed this thing, and if you can't do it, then we've got enough on. So we're just going to leave it a bit. So
Yeah.
we did. Really, really happy to be in touch with them, but it just didn't really happen. The life story books were really hard to get hold of, not from Adoption Focus, but from
The local authority.
a nightmare. So
Yeah.
everything that we've got, we had to fight for years and years. It was not good. Um, so yeah, that was difficult. So we're doing some more life story stuff now, and I think as particularly with the eldest, all those emotions and feelings of you want to know where you're from and piece together the bits of your life that you're not very sure about. We've had some really, really good conversation, very straightforward conversations, very honest conversations. We've always been very honest with both of the boys, told them what we thought was appropriate. Um, and that's been sometimes really hard, again, particularly for the eldest to hear.
Yeah.
But just the way that he's been able to respond and ask amazing questions, I'm just in awe of them, really, because they're just amazing. The stuff they're coming out with. This, in so many ways, they're still younger than their ages
Yeah.
because of their start in life. But in so many others, I wouldn't have been able to put into words what they're feeling like they do. So yes, it's been mixed really. But maybe every year, we get things out and have a look at whether it's photographs or things that have been written by members of the birth family or whatever. Yeah, it's been a mixed experience, I'd say.
I think you just summed it up really nicely there. You have that strange dichotomy where we've got children who perhaps are developmentally younger than their peers due to their start in life,
Yeah,
but they're having to deal with and explore things that no child ever should have to.
absolutely.
And so it's that strange mix. And when they do manage to articulate something that's on their mind, or they can let you know what it is that's important to them,
Mm.
it shows a real strength, doesn't it, in them? You can acknowledge that strength that they have.
Yeah, and I think with looked after kids, they've had to talk to strange adults, sometimes quite a lot of adults, as social workers turn over so quickly. I mean, before the boys came to me, so I guess it wasn't even a year, but 10 or 11 months before that, we'd had 7 social workers,
Gosh.
which was just ludicrous. Um,
Yeah.
Again, from the council side, not adoption focused,
Yeah.
same person who was an absolute saint of God. She was just amazing. I love her to pieces. She was brilliant. But yeah, from the council side, it was really, really difficult because, and again, they would just, somebody new would come and the youngest would just go, "Oh, we've got another one, have we?"
Yeah.
Say that to their face. And the social worker would have to say, "I'm so sorry, but so and so has left and I'm your new social worker."
Yeah.
Just so kind of fed up of having to meet all these people, but able to kind of, let their annoyance be known, which I thought was
Yeah.
very funny. It was great.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
It's also voicing your annoyance as well, but you don't have to be quite so you're like, "Yep,
yeah, yeah.
are they okay?" Like, do
Mm.
they trust adults? Do they form attachments to adult does that, like, interact with does that kinda, like, pass on to how they are with teachers? Or but, like I say, it's like a half-formed thought, so I'm coming.
Yeah. So I think they worked that through in one lot quite early, thankfully. So
Yeah.
we almost drew a line under it, and we kind of said, yeah, it's been a little bit crap, hasn't it? And you've had all these new people. But then, once they're adopted, you just kind of get on with your whole life, and social workers fade into the sort of, into the distance. So no, they've always been really good at relating to adults and speaking with adults. Um, they were, you know, the eldest was quite detached from us. We had a lot of work to do, and again, we maybe had 3 stages, and we'll have another probably. And it's that thing of,
Yeah.
it's almost like a realization of, I love this person, I trust this person. Oh my goodness, they're going to be taken away. And even though he knows
Yeah.
that's not going to happen, it's still there in his DNA. And you've got to keep
Yeah.
working it through. And it's not the same. You have to do it in different ways every time because they're different ages.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know that that's what he's feeling, but that is what he's feeling. So he'll do everything he can to push you away. We've had difficult times. We've had violence, throwing furniture around the room, um, all sorts of really disruptive behaviour. A lot less than a lot of families have, but it has been hard, and we've had to just be really consistent and just keep saying, whatever you do, whatever you break,
Yeah.
whatever, we're still here, we still love you, we're here for life. And then you get normally he breaks down and he's upset because he's realized that's true.
Yeah.
But then has to deal with the guilt of doing what he's done. So he has quite a lot of guilt about being naughty. Again, to do with how he was punished when he was
Yeah.
very, very young. So there's a lot of working out to do before you even open your mouth and speak to the children, really. And we get it wrong all the time, but
Yeah.
sometimes we get it really right, and that's a good thing to celebrate.
Yeah. And I think that's really acknowledging the fact that children can cognitively know something. They can
Mm,
cognitively know we're not going anywhere, but unless they feel it,
yeah,
then that's really hard for them at times. And they can feel it maybe 80, 90% of the time, but for that remaining percentage, when they don't feel it, then it's
yeah.
really hard, isn't it? And yeah,
Yeah, and I think they need a bit of extra help. So the eldest is going through all sorts of things at the moment. We've got a referral to CAMS, and he
mm,
sees somebody every Tuesday, a clinical psychologist, and that's amazing. And it's really, really helping. But it's about, with him, it's about what is a feeling. So when he feels something, he thinks he's experiencing that thing for real all over again, which is, I'm going to be removed. My life is going to be awful. I now feel sky high anxious. Nobody loves me. And that isn't remembering, he's reliving that. And we then have to, all the adults around him have to remember that's what he's going through.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, to get him, and again, he wasn't very good at talking about it because he's very protective of himself, understandably. But seeing this professional, she's really kind of teased it out of him. It's been brilliant.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, just another aspect to think about. Have you seen your support network kind of change in your years of being a parent? I mean, I know naturally support networks change. You've mentioned you've moved to Wales, so I imagine that was quite a drastic change. But yeah, has the type of support that you've received or the people that you've looked to changed?
Mm. Um, so I think when we sort of went through the preparation with adoption focus, you've got these kind of circles of support. So you've got your close kind of, right at the center kind of people, and then you kind of medium support people, and then those on the edges. The people right at the core haven't changed at all, which is really interesting, and that's probably down to them just being, wonderful people and sticking with us and just supporting us, and have been there, in emergency situations. When a car breaks down, you can't get back in time for the school run or for them arriving home or whatever it is, or um, all sorts of things that have happened just in daily life. But then, yeah, the sort of middle layer, um, what the boys still really love is that they've had a community of older people because of what I do for a living.
Yeah.
So lots of, I mean, particularly when we're in Oxford, just lots of aunts and uncles really who spoil them rotten. So of course they love because they'd get knitted blankets and teddy or presents and also what are they called, um, matchbox cars and all that kind of thing. Hot Wheels, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of. Um, they'd get loads of that, but they'd also get kind of emotional support from that as well. And even though
Yeah.
older, they still get that from the community that I'm part of, and
That's
that's lovely.
lovely.
And we also belong to a little environmental group, so they go off and plant trees and kind of help tend this sort of little woodland. And they both love being outside, so to be outside with people who know what they're doing in nature and everything really good for them as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's changed and not changed, but those at the center are the same, I think.
Yeah. I was just wondering how much you choose to share with, obviously not like the core support, but perhaps when new people come into your lives, how much do you choose to share about um, some of the wider adoption related issues? So for example, do you explain that sometimes your eldest worries that he's going to lose you, and that can be the source of, or do you just give a very light touch or not mention it at all?
Sort of core group, and we're talking really four people. They
Yeah.
pretty much know the whole story, because it was a really rough story. So not only did they suffered abuse when they were with their birth parents, they also suffered abuse when they went to their foster carers. And I battled for a
Right.
year to get them struck off. And we had to go to the police and all sorts of things. So the boys were disclosing things, sometimes 4 or 5 disclosures a week. So it was physical and
Wow.
emotional stuff that explained a lot of what was going on. So you try to, shower them or whatever, or give them a bath, and they were physically sort of violent, and it's because they were scared of being in the hot water.
Mm.
But we didn't know that,
Yeah.
obviously, and it's not in their files. It's not all written down in a neat little
No.
page. You just discover these things. So there's a lot of very private stuff that only a few people know. Something amazing that Adoption Focus did. I've spoken to loads of people about this, and they can't quite believe it. So my social worker from you, as it were, came to our church community, and we had an evening with 25 people talking about what to expect from kids who are adopted and some of the things they might have been through, and just the awareness, and the sort of compassion, really, to actually realize these people were going to be the supporters, and that an agency would take the time to do that. That will stay with me forever, because that was a massive thing. Because having a third party saying, this is what it might be like, it could be worse than this, it could be a lot better than this, and it drew them in, but also taught them not to ask those questions. So we've never really had to
Yeah.
answer many of those. And when people ask, I just say, that's their private information.
Yeah.
And some people like it when I say that and go, oh yeah, that's fine, they understand. Some people have been slightly sniffy about it, but that's up to them.
But they can be. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad that that was useful to you, and that, it was useful.
That was
Yeah.
amazing.
How about education then? Obviously, you've got one going through mocks at the moment, which is a horrifically stressful period, full stop. But if we just take a moment to think about education as a whole for your boys, how has it been, or how supportive have you found the education system, or have there been any particular hurdles or barriers for them?
um I think, I mean, one of the main reasons we moved from Oxford to Wales was because of their education. So, they were going to the village school where I was vicar, lovely leafy place. In a sense, on a sort of outside, everything was fine. But actually, when you delved into the ethos of the school, or of it, not particularly the school, but just education in general, and particularly in a fairly wealthy area. Um, to my mind, you had all of these parents who were parenting birth children,
Yeah.
who were, just about holding it together, because the expectations were really high of the children, and homework every night, reading every night. We would get told off regularly by email and by letters and by the head teacher, and say, oh, their reading diaries aren't back and they haven't read this week. And I would say, they're just about holding it together for school time. They're adopted children. They will not be doing their homework.
Yeah.
Get a lot of flack and a lot of disapproving looks, and more than looks. And
Yeah.
I had to be very assertive. And I had a conversation with the leadership team and just said, what you're expecting is not realistic, and it's not going to happen. So stop sending these letters home.
Yeah.
They will not be doing their homework. The fact they're functioning in a normal way and going to school, and they never miss school. They might have had 2 days off a year, if that. They're amazing,
Yeah.
healthy, really. And that to me was an amazing achievement. So to my mind, there were all these kind of, it was a bit yummy mummy. There's all these big sort of Range Rovers pulling up and very stressed people getting out of cars. Go
Yeah.
on, you'll have a lovely day. On the edge of a nervous breakdown. And I was just like, this is nonsense. This is
Yeah.
absolutely rubbish for the parents and for the kids. Why would you want to live like that?
Yeah.
And just said, you know what, we're going to do something different. So we moved. And Wales is very different, particularly North Wales. They have a much more holistic approach to education, um, a much more sort of nurturing understanding, particularly of kids who have been through quite traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Having said that, they both hate school and take great pleasure, you know, in telling everyone how much they hate school. Uh, I don't think
Yeah.
they do when they're actually there, because I hear lots of other good things from other people. But it's been difficult in other ways. So there's an expectation, I think, from schools, some educators, teachers, whatever, that if kids are looked after, they don't really need to be pushed. They're not really going to achieve very
Yeah.
much because they've got issues. We just need to nurture them. And actually, they're not pushed like they should be, is my opinion, because they are both really
Yeah.
intelligent, really clever individuals. But they're almost sort of put in a category with the other
Yeah.
kids who, maybe they've got learning difficulties or ADHD or anxiety issues or whatever, as my children would call them. And that's a shame, but actually it's because of resources, because they haven't got enough staff to give the type of support that they need to kind of push them on, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting take on it because you're right. Like, we often talk a lot about advocating for our children and ensuring that they are supported and nurtured in the right way. And if things like homework are not helping, they're hindering, then yeah, of course. But at no point are we ever trying to limit them or say
Mm,
that they can't aspire or be inspired to do great things. And it's trying to get that message across of we want them to reach their potential,
mm,
but the way in which we do that might be seen slightly differently than
yeah,
traditional education methods.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's difficult because they still, on some level, they are going to have to operate in the world,
yeah,
and if you don't get your GCSEs, it's going to be a problem because there's not
yeah,
that much to do without them. So it's kind of getting that balance of, they need to be pushed to do the things that they can do, because I know they can do it, but they also need to be, nurtured and maybe given a bit more time to.
yeah. The way the way in which we're going to push them is different. So that's
So it's been mixed. So
yeah.
yeah, down south it was, I would say, problematic, to put it nicely. On the whole, I think it's been better in Wales. Yeah.
That's good to hear, and I am an ex-teacher myself. I spent 13 years
Oh wow.
teaching maths in secondary schools, and I was a good teacher. I was very good at being a maths teacher, but I wish I could go back to my younger self and kind of explain a little bit about attachment
Mm,
and the impact of trauma, because I just think to myself I inadvertently probably wasn't helping children in the way in which I could
yeah.
through lack of knowledge. And if we could get that message out there to our educators, it well, it would make me a happy bunny, I think.
Yeah,
So
there's all sorts of things we could do to improve it, I think. But, we're post COVID, there are teacher shortages, budget cuts. I don't know how they do the job that they're doing, really, but yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
no, I don't, and it's probably something that I'll continue to think about for many years to come. But I'd just like to bang the drum whenever I can, whenever I go into my daughter's school, for example. Just share the word. So, um, so what things have surprised you most about adoptive parenting?
I mean, personally, probably how resilient I've been able to be, or the things that we've had to cope with. Because when it happens, you can't unhappen it. It's happened, and you've got to deal with it. Whether it's just something really traumatic or just kids being kids. So yeah, I've probably surprised myself, but also the boys surprise me all the time because they're sort of they're really empathetic, lovely children. They just are, and they know when things aren't right, and
Yeah.
they somehow, I mean, they can drive me mad, but sometimes they say just the right thing, or they'll say something that will make me laugh, and it just
Yeah.
snaps you back into what is important. So whether it's a work thing that I'm really struggling with, and just some ridiculous nonsense that the eldest will come out with, just makes you go, oh yeah, that's just work, and the important stuff is here. So that kind of always surprises me. It shouldn't, because they've been like that since day one. They're very funny, witty children. Of course, the eldest has now discovered sarcasm. Apparently, is from me, but he's very, very funny. He's really funny, and that I just really, really like. He's very witty. Um, but yeah, just how they're turning out to be, um, young people who can function in the world. It's like, wow, how did
Yeah.
from these little bundles of anger, which they were when they arrived, quite rightly, they had a lot to be angry about, into these sort of eloquent, lovely, sensitive people who can sit and chat to anybody, who have wide range of interest, and yeah, just brilliant. Really, that always surprises me.
And that's a lovely thing to pick on or to pick up on, because I would imagine that for many parents, however they have become parents, that joy of watching your child grow and thrive and have these
Mm,
wonderful qualities. And that's something that we share because, yes, adoptive parenting is different in many ways. The process by which we become parents, or the learning that we do, and the challenges that we have to face are different.
mm,
But the joys aren't different. The love that you feel and the
no,
sheer in awness of them at times is,
yeah,
I think,
yeah, and I think that's the other thing that surprised me, because I've always been quite sort of, um, driven or whatever, and that can make you quite selfish, because you kind of have all these aims or things you want to do in life, and then suddenly that just goes out of the window, because it's like, well, life is completely different now,
yeah.
and just that fact that you do literally anything for them, is yeah, quite a surprise to me, because I was living a nice professional single life, and then this thing happened.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to that resilience that you mentioned, because I think nothing teaches you how resilient you can be
Mm,
better than parenting,
no,
because there isn't, we can't walk away. We've made that commitment, and it pushes you to find new depths of resilience at times, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, the other thing that's surprised me as well is I've got friends who have seen that it has been hard. One or two who've gone on to adopt or foster themselves, and you think, well, that's interesting. So people are looking on in quite a realistic way. They're not just thinking, oh, it's all going
Yeah.
skipping around on the beach and eating cake together and singing songs. There's a load of other stuff that's just really, really difficult, but it's kind of what you sign up for. Um, Nothing prepares you for it, but yeah, I think just having that realistic view when you're looking at somebody else who's done it, is really important. Yeah,
Yeah, realistic and balanced. So yes, they'll recognise the challenges, but they'll also see the sheer joy
yeah,
and
yeah, completely.
know that's what makes it
Yeah,
worthwhile. So, well, thank you so much for your time today, Nathan. It has been an absolute joy talking to you and thinking about your journey as an adoptive parent.
yeah, and I think just to conclude, what I would say is that our experience with Adoption Focus, was amazing from start to finish. Not just amazing social workers, but the training and the proper sort of realistic preparation, but done in a really gentle, caring way. And if anybody is thinking about, adopting children, or they're looking around for an agency, go to Adoption Focus. They haven't paid me to say that. I want to
That is so lovely to hear. Thank you, Nathan.
welcome.
Thank you so much, Nathan, for joining us today. It's been really lovely hearing about your boys and a little about how your story has unfolded after the adoption order. Thank you also to everyone who's listened today. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Adoption in Focus podcast, look out for more episodes coming shortly, or check out our sister podcast, Education in Focus. If there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about, get in touch.